Hello everybody. Hey, Cal Banyan back here. I just reviewed last podcast. It went so well that I decided I'd do another one today. So if you notice that I'm wearing the same shirt at the same time, that's why. It's the same day and I'm back to you with podcast number 19, our second video podcast. I'm really excited to be doing this with you folks today. This one I'm going to be answering more of those questions from the list that I received from the Banyan Online practice group. So last time in the previous podcast, what did I do? I talked about the air induction. Where did I get that name? Well, you ever heard of playing air guitar? Well, what do? There's no guitar there. Well, the air induction, and the proper spelling of that is AIAR, is called the air induction. I call it that because there's really no induction, and that the person instantaneously goes into a deep state of hypnosis and simultaneously commences a revivification of a past event, a reliving. That's called hypnotic age regression. So if you haven't yet seen or heard that blog entry, please do so. That's podcast number 18. Today we're going to proceed. Let's see. I'm going to answer some more questions from the study group. The study group is a group of hypnotherapists who are studying the Banyan Online Supervision CD program. It's a program that I did as kind of an externship program to support our grads, where I really get into some of the deeper topics, something more than we can go over in a small 100-hour plus certification course or advanced hypnotherapy program. So they're going through those CDs week by week, discussing what's on the CDs, making sure they have clarity and that kind of thing. And from time to time, they'll ask me questions, and I'll either pop into the virtual classroom myself and answer their questions, or sometimes I'll email our 5-path group on Yahoo and so on. But gosh, now I've got this ability to make video podcasts, and I'm sure that the questions that they have are going to be pertinent and of interest to you too. So from time to time, I'll pluck some questions from there and answer them, along with just some other topics I want to get into in the future too. So anyway, I talked a lot about that last time in the last video, so now I just want to get right into some questions. And from time to time, you'll see me looking down a little bit. That's because I have my monitor, my computer monitor right in front of me, and I have my notes and outline and stuff right down there. Most of the time I'll be looking right at you, but if you see me looking down, that's why. All right, let's see. I have a note here. I'll place links you need to any of the resources that I mentioned in this video on the page on calbanyan.com. That's the site that you're probably at right now. But some people are getting this video podcast like on YouTube or some of the other video distribution networks and that kind of thing. Plus our blog is distributed through many different ways. So if you want to catch everything on our blog, get all of our podcasts, all of our video podcasts, make sure you go back to calbanyan.com, because with each podcast there's a page that has some explanation of the resources that I mention in each podcast. So there we go. Now we're ready to dig in and look at some of these questions. And once again, I want to thank Celeste, one of our grads who leads that study group, for taking the time to send the group's questions into me, typing them up and that kind of thing. Okay. The next question on her list was, sometimes a new issue, physical or emotional or both, can come up for a client either during or in between hypnosis sessions. It makes sense. She wants to know, does it really make sense to deal with them once they come up and as they surface in these sessions or in between sessions, or should they be postponed to some other time? Let's see, in her words, she says, it makes sense to deal with them once they come into the surface. However, how do you deal with them efficiently and effectively without losing track of where you are? If you haven't finished the previous age regression. Is it better to make a note of that feeling and deal with it next time, or work with it immediately? Well, this is a really big question. And as 5-path hypnotherapists, really mastering age regression is essential. Now, our clients come to us with either an issue that they want to work on, like a fear or a bad habit, or even a physical complaint, like a psychosomatic illness or something like that. And they state, I have this issue I want to work on. Sometimes they'll come in with what I like to call a laundry list or a shopping list of issues where they list a whole bunch of things. When that happens, just as an aside here, what I recommend you do is you turn to that client and you say, look, it really works best if we focus mainly on one issue at a time in the work we're going to do. And with that being the best way to do it, if you could only work on one issue on this list, what would it be? And as you think about that, think about which issue on this list, if I was successful, completely successful of working through that issue or achieving that goal or whatever it is, which one on that list would give me the maximum benefit, the best outcome in my life as a whole? Why would we start anywhere else and have them come up with that thing, whatever it is, that issue, that complaint, and then work there? Now, in phase 1 of 5-path, we're going to do all the preparation with the pre-talk. We're going to do the intake, and then we're going to do the induction. The induction should have a built-in test for the proper level of hypnosis that we need, which is at least the threshold of somnambulism. Once we've done that, then we want to do some convincers, and a convincer, just in brief, because it's a whole podcast in itself, is once you've tested covertly for a deep level of hypnosis, then you can, with confidence, do another test for a light level of hypnosis. And when you do that, then that convinces the client that they're hypnotized, because that should be an overt test, something that they know that they pass. Excuse me. Once you've accomplished that, then you wrap up every session of 5-path with a direct suggestion period, so that you can give the individual suggestions for what they came in for. At this point in the process, what we do is before we do the direct suggestion, we look at the clock and we say, do we have time to move on to age regression? If we have sufficient time left in the session, we move into the direct suggestion, into the age regression, and save direct suggestion for the end of the session. If we don't have time to do the age regression, we just finish up that first session with direct suggestion, and we've completed phase 1. Okay. And so then, either in that first session or in the subsequent session that is to follow, what I recommend you do is then commence an age regression, and the king of age regression for most work we do is a style called affect bridge age regression, which means we bring up the emotion that's associated with the feeling. One of the wordings that I like, and I think it's either Jerry Kine or Stephen Parkhill that really promotes this idea, is that you say, there's a feeling, this person's in somnambulism now. We say, there's a feeling inside you don't like that has everything to do with why you came here today. And then we bring that feeling up, strong and powerful, and we follow it back. Okay. Then, now this first initial emotion is the one that has everything to do with why they came here today. So now, having set that up, let me go ahead and reread that question so that everybody will be on the same page, so to speak. Now, she says, sometimes a new issue, physical or emotional or both, can come up for a client, either during or in between sessions. She says it makes sense to deal with them once they come to the surface. However, how do you deal with them efficiently without losing track if you haven't finished a previous age regression? And here I think she means, excuse me. Now, what I think she means here is you've brought up this feeling associated with the issue, and you're going back. Let's say that feeling is fear, and you're following that fear back in time, trying to determine where it started. What if, as you're going back, another emotion comes up, such as anger? Should you deal with that anger in that regression, or should you save it for another time? And you got to remember, this group is reviewing a CD that's an hour and a half long on age regression and issues like multiple ISEs and multiple affect bridges and that kind of thing. Excuse me. And so I'm going to try to keep this as simple and as useful as I can in this podcast. Now, the emotion that's most important is the first one that came up in the age regression, because it came up when we made the suggestion. There's a feeling inside you that has everything to do with why you came here today. And then we bring that emotion up strong and powerful by simply saying something like, in a moment I'll count from 1 to 5, and it'll come up as strong and powerful as it's ever been. We want to bring it up strong and powerful. Then we follow it back. Follow that feeling back to an earlier time you felt that way, and so on, until we've met the 8 criteria needed to establish an ISE. Now, sometimes other feelings will come up. She's asking, should we deal with it in that age regression or save it for another time? Well, it really depends on a lot of factors. If for one thing, it's a time factor. We don't want to bring a lot of different emotions into an age regression and start working with them when there's not time to finish it up. But our goal is really to find that ISE. So what I would do is I would predominantly stay with the first age regression, with the first emotion that came up in the beginning of the age regression. Follow it back. Then go before the ISE. Give that, usually it's a child before the age of 5, the information he or she needs so that she can then go through the ISE once again without picking up the erroneous beliefs or misperceptions that the grown-up aspect of the client experienced when he or she originally went through that event when he or she was a child. Now, that's how to do age regression hypnosis. And I want to recommend that if you're not a 5-path hypnotherapist, that you go to my free articles section on hypnosiscenter.com. There's a lot of articles there about age regression. There's articles there about affect bridge and inductions and all that kind of stuff, and really a brief rundown on what 5-path is. So, you might want to stop and read that now if you haven't already read it, because this is advanced information I'm giving you now. So if I'm doing an age regression on fear and anger comes up, I'm probably going to leave the anger alone if I'm limited on time. If I have plenty of time in the regression, what I'll do is I will follow that fear back to the beginning, and then I will find out if in that ISE, the initial sensitizing event, that very first event that began it all, did that event only cause fear, or did it also cause anger? If it caused both of them, then I am now even more inclined to deal with that fear. if I have time to do it. With that anger, if I have time to do it. Because what I can do is I can look at that event and determine whether or not the anger is based in accurate perceptions. I'm going to recommend a book. If you haven't got it already, I strongly advise you to get my book, The Secret Language of Feelings. In that book, you're going to learn how to determine whether feelings are built in reality or not. It's a hugely important book for people who do this kind of work, because you're going to learn what the wisdom of certain emotions are, the wisdom of anger, the wisdom of sadness, and so on. Because if the anger that is generated in ISC is built on a false perception, okay, the child believes the situation is unfair, generating the anger, but it is not truly unfair from a grown-up's perspective, then what we will do is we'll give the child the information he or she needs so she can go through the event recognizing the situation as being fair. So through using the informed child technique, we can overcome both emotions that can come up in an age regression. Now, so what have I said? If I'm doing an age regression and two emotions come up, two affects come up, I'm going to follow the first one back to the ISC. It has priority and I deal with it. If I find in the ISC that both of the emotions that were uncovered during the times going back through the SSEs, if both of those emotions were generated in the ISC, then I will at that time give that child the information he or she needs so that we can neutralize both of those emotions. The third possibility is that we could have uncovered in the age regression an emotion that is not associated with the ISC that generated the primary emotion that's causing the problem. Now again, here it's always a matter of how much time do you have to wrap up the session, because we want to find that ISC, we want to neutralize it. If that second emotion is not being generated by that ISC, that means there is a second ISE that generated that emotion. And then we can then either deal with that ISE in that session if we have time, or we can save it dealing with that emotion, like that anger, in a second age regression session. Now, and of course, I've only got so much time to deal with this. If you find this topic interesting, I recommend that you get the 5-path DVD certification course. You can start studying it right away, and then get into the externship program, the online supervision CDs. Now, if we uncover a second ISC that's generating a second emotion, how important is it that we deal with it and neutralize it? It kind of depends. If the person has come to us because of a bad habit, like eating too much, drinking too much, smoking too much, and so forth, as I explain in my book, The Secret Language of Feelings, what those are coping strategies. And what they're doing is they are, through the use of those behaviors, eating too much, drinking too much, smoking too much, and all that kind of stuff, they are managing their emotions, these uncomfortable emotions that are inside of them. And what this means to the hypnotherapist is any unresolved emotion from the past that is inside and bothering them, that can motivate them to do these distracting behaviors. And so if my client has come in for these either addictions, compulsions, bad habits, these behaviors where they're doing too much of something, then now that anger becomes important and it must be neutralized. If it is an anger that is being generated by a misperception, then the informed child technique is the order of the day. But if the anger is being caused because something indeed unfair occurred, then this individual has what I call righteous anger. You're supposed to be angry when you experience some level, some significant level of injustice. So, what we're going to do, and you might be surprised at this, is we're going to leave that anger in place and not deal with it in the age aggression. Because phase 3, you see, that anger is good. It's there to motivate the individual to do the sometimes difficult things he or she needs to do to make the situation fair. Now, in phase 3 of 5 path, we do a kind of therapy we call forgiveness therapy. And this forgiveness therapy is really there to neutralize anger from the past. Even if we did informed child technique, to neutralize erroneous anger being generated by a misperception, some of that anger is still being held inside the client and it needs to be neutralized. And we're going to do that in the forgiveness therapy. But if the anger in the age regression that was uncovered in the age regression was being caused by righteous anger, we don't deal with it in the age regression. We save it for this phase 3. So in phase 3, this forgiveness of others therapy, what we're going to do is completely eliminate anger from the past that is either based in reality and true perceptions, or erroneous anger that's just left over residual inside the client even after we've done the informed child technique. Now, this is especially important when we're working with clients who are doing these too much behaviors, eating too much, drinking too much, smoking too much, and this kind of thing. Because both the fears from the past and the anger from the past are uncomfortable feelings that our client has been attempting to cope with through these distraction techniques. It's not until we neutralize those emotions is our client really going to be free from the drive to do those things. Now, so that's how we handle this additional emotion. And by the way, another emotion that can come up, very common in these age regressions, is guilt. And once again, it's just like with anger. I kid around in class and say, anger has a twin sister and her name is guilt. Because guilt, just like anger, comes from the perception of unfairness. We feel angry when someone does something that we perceive as unfair to us. We feel guilty when we perceive that we've done something unfair to someone else. So if the guilt that's being generated by an event uncovered in the age regression is based in reality, then we don't deal with the guilt in the age regression. If it is, let me make sure I said that right. If the anger uncovered if the guilt uncovered in the age regression is based in reality, in other words, that they actually did do something wrong to someone, then we save that guilt and the resolution of that guilt until we do forgiveness of self, which is phase 4 in 5 path. If the guilt is being generated by an event from the past, but it is out of misperception, the person feels guilty when actually they didn't do anything wrong or unfair to someone else, then we use the informed child technique, in which the adult and the therapist goes back with the child before that event and gives him or her permission that that individual needs in order to go through that event without picking up feelings of guilt. Okay. Whew. Boy, that was a little bit of really deep discussion, wasn't it? Oh, I see there's one more question here pertaining to this topic sent in from Celeste. It says, is it better to make a note of that feeling and deal with it next time or work with it immediately? Well, again, it has to do with how much time do you have. If you have time to move into phase 3, forgiveness of others, to deal with anger, or to move into phase 4, to deal with guilt, then go ahead and deal with it immediately. But if you don't, save those phases for subsequent sessions. Now, having spoken about that, this is different than the client suddenly coming up with a different issue that he or she wants to work on in the middle of a session or in between sessions. If you're working with a client for weight loss and suddenly they want to shift to fear of flying, you need to talk to them about what the priority is. You know, if they suddenly have to fly for a business and it just suddenly came up, then it makes sense to right then in the middle of the process start working on that fear of flying, because suddenly it became the most important issue. Okay? But don't let your clients just start adding issues into the work you're doing. Stay focused. The more issues you try to work on at once, the more it will dilute the effectiveness of the therapy you're doing at the time with the client. Okay. That was pretty deep. Oh boy, I was very serious in that one. Well, one of the things you can tell is I've got a little bit like a frog in my throat or something. Let's go ahead and wrap up this podcast for today. I got a couple notes to myself down here at the bottom. Oh, gosh, I hope you are checking back to my blog at a regular basis. If you look at the top right-hand corner of calbanyan.com, you'll see that you could actually sign up to just automatically get these blog entries whenever I make a new one. It'll just automatically come to you. So feel free to do that. I hope you'll also go to my my website, www.hypnosiscenter.com, to learn about all of our training programs and training materials. And of course, I hope you will stop by the www.banyanhypnosismall.com, where there's all the good stuff hypnotists really want, from pendulums to hypnosis mugs and training courses by a number of different leaders. There's our e-zine, there's free scripts, it's just a great resource. There's the hypnosis glossary A to Z and all that stuff. Great free articles. Okay, with that, me and my froggy throat, we're checking out for today. I hope you keep checking back. Oh, read the Hypnosis Manifesto up in the top right-hand corner. There's a graphic right there. Click it, and what I want you to do is I want you to keep sending me your comments about what I'm doing. Give me your suggestions. If you don't agree with something I say, please let me know. I'm a good guy, but I don't have every opinion. Let me know what you think of what I'm saying, and if you have a disagreement, let me know, and I'll see if maybe I can make amends with you here. All right, that's it. This is Cal Banyan signing out. This recording is the property of Cal Banyan and Cal Banyan's Banyan Publishing, Incorporated. All rights reserved. For private use only. May not be duplicated without written permission.